to Mark Sargent. How's it going?
It's going very well. Thank you for having me.
No problem, no problem. Super excited to have you on. For those who don't know who Mark Sargent is, I'd probably describe you as the OG of the Flat Earth movement. You know, the Godfather is some people like
Oh
to
God.
call you on the internet.
Uh,
And how
I
about
I
you
am
sort of give yourself a little bit of an introduction? Who's Mark Sargent to you? Because obviously there's loads of different versions of you out there in the eyes of tons of people on the internet. Who is Mark Sargent?
sure. I am the freshman recruiter for the wonderful metaphorical thing that has been out there for the last 5 years called Flat Earth University. Is my stuff the deepest? Is the most comprehensive? No, but chances are, if you get into Flat Earth, you're going to run into my stuff first. It is the introductory text and narrative and videos. 5 years ago, I know you call me the OG. You know, I've been doing this, one of the people that's been doing this longest, and it's only been 5 years, right? You know, way back, remember 2015? So, yeah, I got into it in the summer of 2014. Thought I was completely bored with just about every conspiracy you could think of. I mean, I don't consider myself a tin hat guy, but I had an opinion. You know, I never got married, never had kids, and I was in the tech field. So I was on the internet a lot. And so I was in the early rabbit holes, even though I was very naive as a kid. I didn't even believe in conspiracies at all until I saw JFK in the theater in, I think it was 91, something like that. I can't remember, 91, 92. And that gives you an idea how old I am. And then I had gone through just about every rabbit hole you could think of. And then in summer of 2014, I was like, well, I'm not getting any younger. Might as well look at this stupid flat earth thing. Why not, right? What could it hurt? And it was the worst decision of my life. It was absolutely a horrible, horrible rabbit hole that just never, ever ended, to where in February of 2015, I woke up, I had the Jerry Maguire moment, literally at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I said, okay, I'm going to go insane if I keep doing this. I'm just going to go the other way. I'm going to make a series of videos, even though I've never made videos before, put them out on the internet with my full contact information, you know, phone number, address, name, where you can find me, street corner I'm going to be standing on, and see what happens. And instead of academics coming back at me and just stomping this thing into the ground, I had all sorts of people contacting me, not just people from the media. I mean, all sorts of people, subject matter experts and men on the street saying, you know what, it's not crazy. Here's why. And it just started blossoming into this weird, the tendrils just went off everywhere, to where here we are 5 years later, 3 books, the documentaries, I've lost count of interviews, and this is what I do. This is what
I
I
mean,
do.
you know, and it kind of went crazy for you really, really fast. I mean, you
Yeah.
now have millions of views on YouTube, 80,000+ subscribers.
Yeah.
How does that kind of one, did you ever sort of expect anything like that in terms of your own personal brand kind of kicking off? Were you prepared for such kind of fame that early on?
Well, you know, that's what I desired the most, you know, the sex, the fame, the drugs, you know, all that stuff. I really, really want it. No. Not at all. As a matter of fact, I didn't even have an idea, because there was stuff happening behind the scenes that I didn't know about. The first thing a lot of people don't know is that most of the Flat Earth Clues views weren't on my channel, because I thought, not only did I give out my contact information, I used something on YouTube, you probably know it, called Creative Commons license, where I said, you know what, anyone can have it, have fun, go nuts, because I wanted it to be shared. I didn't care about the nickels. And there were people that were basically, because my channel wasn't even big enough to where I could make videos longer than 15 minutes. So there were people that were compiling all the clues into a 2-hour thing, and they were putting it on their own channels. And those were getting all the hits, millions of hits in these different channels. I had no idea who these people were. And people kept emailing me saying, oh, really enjoyed your movie. It's like, movie? 15 minutes isn't really a long thing. I don't know what you're talking about, movie. But then finally I got tired of that. It's like, what exactly are you clicking on? And so they started showing me. It's like, holy smokes, this thing really, really took off. And then I give you other quick examples. You know that things are resonating when like a publisher, a book publisher out of London, of all things, they contacted me pretty early on and say, hey, how about, can we turn your clues into a book? It's like, oh, okay, sure, why not? What do I have to do? Nothing. Just send us your transcripts. We'll turn it into books. Like, okay. Coast to Coast, you know, with the big conspiracy shows out there, they contact, this will give you an idea. They contacted me 3 months after I made the first clues. And I just, out of the blue, completely unsolicited. In fact, if I had an autobiography, if I live long enough, you know, if the apocalypse doesn't happen in the next 6 months, if I live long enough, the autobiography is literally going to be called Unsolicited. I never had to pick up a phone. The producers, like the Coast to Coast producer, called me up. It's like, all right, give me your spiel on the flat Earth. It's like, you know, what's your DVD called? I was going, what DVD? It's like, okay, what's your book? I don't have a book. And she was getting more and more frustrated. She goes, what's your website? I go, I've only been doing this 3 months. I have no idea what I'm doing. She goes, why am I talking to you? I go, because you called me. And you know, she got a recommendation from somebody, and she goes, okay, give me the nickel tour now. And so I gave her the nickel spiel, and I was on the next week. And people don't understand, just to get on Coast to Coast, people just, I mean, there are people that solicit Coast to Coast all the time. It's like, put me on your show, put me on your show. I never had to call anybody.
Wow.
So was I ready for it? Not really. But at the same time, it was gradual enough. The slope was gradual enough that I could get used to it. Smaller podcast, smaller cop, but bigger. And then, you know, Russell Brand's calling me and saying, you got to do my show at 3 a.m. your time. I was like, okay,
wow,
sure. So yeah,
so
it's wild.
it was clearly
the Philip and Holly thing, which I did just
yeah. Well, I mean, I'd love to get onto that. You know, it was clearly a very marketable subject at the time. Whether the Earth is flat or whether it's round or whether it's fucking square, it doesn't really matter at this point. It was just an extremely marketable theory, a very, very interesting kind of worldview shaking theory, which is extremely fun to explore. You know, I've had tons and tons of my friends message me and say to me in real life over the years, dude, man, I think the Earth might be flat. And I'm like, shut up. And then they're like, no, seriously, man, look into it. Like, whether you believe it or not, it can still just be a recreational, interesting thing to look into, much as it is like to go on Netflix and watch, I don't know, Game of Thrones or something. It's a fun activity to do. The issue is people put a hell of a lot of energy and thought and emphasis that allow them their emotions to change on whether it's true or not. And then people just fight. And then, you know, people try and cancel certain people like yourself, and then the abuse starts. It's a fun thing to look into, and it doesn't have to be a stressful, world-changing rabbit hole. If you just look at it as people on the internet creating content, and it's up to you as mature adults of how you receive that information. And
agreed. You know, it's kind of like, and I was really surprised. Again, I'm older, and I saw The Matrix in the theater back in '99. Imagine Matrix, 21 years old now, and the 13th floor, and all the previous things. And what's interesting is, you know, The Matrix is 21 years old, and the whole concept really never took off. I mean, yeah, it was an interesting movie, but come on, it was more of an action movie more than anything. People didn't get the cerebral side of it. And what I keep trying to, because people will eventually, I don't know if you were going to ask me, which is, am I into virtual reality or simulations or something like that? And it's like, yeah, of course I am. I'm come from the tech world. That's all we think about is virtual reality. I mean, you know, the gaming platforms that we play, whether you play Fortnite or GTA or Minecraft or whatever the hell's out there, people don't understand that those worlds are absolutely flat. And they're enclosed. They're basically a giant cake box. You know, it's this big rectangle with a shallow roof that they simulate everything on the inside. In fact, the whole, everything you see in the sky is called a skybox system.
Yeah. I'm actually a game developer. I'm working on a game at the moment. So
perfect.
Yeah, open world sandbox.
Yeah. So. And what I try to keep telling, but people don't get it. I mean, I could, you know full well. I mean, we could talk about simulations all day, and there's a lot of people that just don't. For whatever reason, they just don't understand it. And, you know, the ramifications. And so I start off with the most basic, lowest common denominator thing. And that is, well, you start off with it being flat. And then if you can get your head around that, then it's enclosed. And if it's flat and it's closed, it's probably virtual. And again, we go off into the weeds, but yeah.
What was it? We will 100% get into why you think the Earth is flat, and we'll exchange ideas because I
Okay.
have tons of questions I'd like to ask you.
Sure.
But you were on a show here called This Morning in the United Kingdom, probably one of the biggest morning shows going. And you were on with Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby, probably the two most famous television presenters here in the UK. What was this
Right.
back in February, right? Got a couple of millions of views and all this good stuff. What was it like? What were they like in person? What was the whole like experience like going on This Morning?
Well, Philip was very abusive, and Holly was a drugs everywhere. It was none of that. I'm kidding. No, they were lovely, lovely people. It was quite a whirlwind type thing because it was last minute. They called me up and they said, look, we'd like to do you virtual, but honestly, by the time we set up the virtual thing, it'd be just as cheap to fly you out. So it's like, okay, I bounced off. I flew Iceland Air, bounced off Reykjavik into London,
Mm,
and put me up at a hotel, your standard stuff where you are they know where you are at every given second.
mm.
And to where once they pick you up in the morning, they take you to the studio, and then you are walked around by different producers. At no point do they leave you kind of alone to just kind of meander off.
Mm.
Bring you up to the studio. You don't meet Philip and Holly beforehand, because they're doing their show. They're
Yeah.
just doing it. You're off camera to do a couple teaser shots where it's like, oh, Mark's going to be on next, and blah, blah, blah. And you have a chance, but people don't understand that it's still all about the producers. The on-air talent and the producers, very, very different. It's the producers that pull the strings.
Mm.
On-air talent is just, they might as well be Ron Burgundy,
Well,
if
they're
you
just
know.
puppets, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they're just actors. They're going through the motions, right? That's
they
just the.
they are literally just actors that go
Mm,
through the motions. Literally, people make fun of the Ron Burgundy thing.
mm,
It's, where he reads the teleprompter
yeah.
no matter what. I'm Ron Burgundy, because he put a question mark at the end of it. I mean, that's what they do. No offense to them. I think they're great people, but that's their job.
Mm,
And so the producers, they're the ones that contact you. They're the ones that they bounce off the ideas and see if it's feasible. And then when you get in, and I did have a chance of off air, once the camera's cut, I had a couple minutes with Philip and Holly. I thanked Philip for finally being bold enough to come out, because remember he came out
mm.
actually just literally the weekend before I got there.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. It's
okay,
like going,
okay.
oh wow, this is pretty good. And I said, good for you. Glad that you didn't just wait until you retired. And then and again, I was lucky because I understand that Holly left the show not too much longer after that to do whatever she's doing now.
Mm,
And but it was great. It was a cool little thing, and I didn't mind. I mean, they had a battery of questions,
mm,
just a battery of different things that they could pick through if they wanted to. I didn't know exactly what slides they were going to put on screen. I wasn't looking at the monitor at any given point. It was
mm.
over my shoulder. Every once in a while, they had to point just to make sure we were on the same page. But it wasn't that, for me, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it went a lot better than, and you probably don't remember this. That was not the first show I did over there. The first one I did was Good Morning Britain with
Yeah,
Piers Morgan.
on BBC. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that one that one was probably the only time I was ever intimidated before going into an interview.
Really.
Well, Piers is notorious
Mm,
for just torturing people. If he doesn't like you, he's coming after you.
mm,
And I'm just bracing myself. It's like, oh my God. And then at the last minute, I find out that they've got one of our astronauts in the studio standing, sitting next to him. And at that point, I'm in a tough position because I'm
mm,
coming in remotely. I was not in the studio. We did this remotely. And people were angry at me from my community for not being more aggressive and attacking the astronaut more.
mm.
And I said, you don't get it. They go, you got a producer on off camera with a finger on his button, just waiting for you to screw up, waiting for you to say something off color to where it's like, oh, hey, we lost Mark. We'll try to get
Mm.
him back after the break.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
never come back.
Of course.
And so, for me, it was just kind of a redemption thing, just trying to develop, seeing how much we could bounce back and forth.
Mm,
Philip kind of played actually, they were both kind of playing the bad cop. They neither of them really embraced it, but at the same time, that was all right. You know,
Mm.
that's not their job.
I kind of feel like with these conversations, my ethos is um, I will let my entire guard down. I will allow myself to absorb and forget about what I currently believe. Spend this period of time reading this new information and giving myself the best possible chance of success to have my mind changed, because you can always go back to believing in whatever shit you believed in before. It's always going to be there, right? Even if you're just looking into this stuff for 10 minutes, right? Not even if it's just flat earth, whether it's different religious beliefs or whether it's different political views. There is this huge closed-minded thing that's happening at the moment out there in the world, where once you have your strongly held belief and opinion, you have to stick with that no matter what. Otherwise, you're going to appear weak and you're going to appear
Yeah,
vulnerable, and you're going to look like this type of person who can just jump from one thing to another.
yeah,
And flat Earth has kind of become this kind of super taboo subject of which you can't even talk about pragmatically without having someone point fun at you going, you're a flat earther, you believe the earth's flat, you're stupid, and all this good
yeah.
stuff. So Mark, why is the earth flat? What is the current model, your model, from your experience and your research within your community? How's the earth look?
The current model. Okay. There's what I believe, and there's what did you, by the way, did you get a chance to see the documentary at all? The
Which one is it? What's it called?
the on Netflix, there was a documentary that
Yes,
was
I've seen that. Yeah.
okay, perfect. So 70%, I'm ballparking it, 70% of the community believe that we are in a building with walls and a floor and a ceiling that could be covered by a dome, and that there are finite edges that eventually you will run into. You can't get out of here. We are stuck. It's a
It's
very,
the
very,
firmament, right?
yeah, the
Or what's?
firmament
Yep.
from the Bible. It's
Yep.
we're in a snow globe, a pizza box, a cake box, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
The other 30% believe that there is no dome, but those people are generally more, they don't like to be restrained or restricted. It's like, why fence us in, man? They just can't, they don't like the whole idea of confinement. These people would not do well in prison. And then there are a few people out there that go along with slightly different curved models, donut models, and lands within lands. But I try to stay within the snow globe model, and that it's perfectly flat across. Of course, there's mountains and valleys and stuff, but both edges line up, and the dome would be fairly shallow. It'd be kind of like a shallow enclosed sports stadium, because it doesn't have to be that high. If it's 20 something thousand miles wide, then the height doesn't even have to be 5,000 miles high if you want. And that the sun and the moon are inside it. They're very, very small. They are both independent of each other. The sun is just basically an incandescent light bulb that's maybe 50 miles across, and the moon is the same size, which it appears to be, when we look in the sky. The eclipse is perfect. It's like, well, that's because the moon is 400 times more narrow, but 400 times closer. It's like, wow, what a great coincidence. And that the moon is an LED light bulb. And those, I mean, that's generally the definition of what we're looking at. However, there are all sorts of internal arguments over the details of how this world works. And so when you go to like flat earth meetups and conventions, by the way, we're still going to plan on one conference this year, because we found a place that doesn't require masks, South Carolina. So we're going to go. But all these people can still agree on one thing, and that it's a globe. So it's a weird mix. We have people that go into conferences, they get all sorts of diagrams. It's like, oh, it might be this and this, which is why in the documentary I kind of poked at the Scottish Highlands. By the way, which one of your newspapers picked up and said that flat earthers says that Scottish hate the British. What? It's like, no, I'm talking about a long time ago.
Oh, I don't know, man. They're probably not wrong. That referendum and stuff, it got quite heated.
Yeah. So but it is the parallels are there, which is, there's a lot of different Scottish flags, but at the end they can all agree they hate the British, right? So that's the same thing with the flat earth group. If you wanted me to go over my 5 biggest points of why, let me know, and I can do that.
Cool. Okay, so you think that the earth is a flat disk, much like my wooden table here, and if there is the sun and there's the moon, and it's
Yep.
just rotating around this way. And
Yep.
the way in which the day and night cycles are explained is that because they're acting as spotlights, it only lights up a certain part of the flat Earth model, and the flat Earth
Right.
model is like the globe pancaked essentially. So it still kind of works similar with the northern and southern hemisphere being lit up and getting the majority of the light, because the spotlight is either on the outside of the dome, as in the southern hemisphere, or the north side of the dome in the center. And that's
Right.
kind of how that science works out. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And one more thing, because people leave this out a lot, and I've got to apologize for the diagrams that we
Mm,
see. You know, you see a lot of flat Earth models, and you see this giant sun and the moon. Unfortunately, we can't draw the sun and the moon to scale
mhm,
because they would be so tiny that they would almost be, you know, like a pixel
mm,
on the image.
of course, yeah.
So when you see the diagrams, you see the sun and the moon, and they're easily 1,000 to 2,000 miles wide, which is
Mm,
interesting because the moon is actually
mm,
2,000 miles wide if you believe mainstream science.
mm,
So, but the other thing, it's not just that it's a spotlight. The other thing that factors into it, which again, we're not really taught that much in school, is that the atmosphere is as thick as it is, it makes everything just blur off into the distance. Meaning what we're breathing in now is only 99% transparent. We're breathing in actually not even that much oxygen. It's 20% oxygen,
mm,
mostly nitrogen. Well, because of that, when you look off into the distance, things will fade away. No different than if you've ever seen scuba shots of a whale underwater, right? Even a whale at 300 yards starts to just fade off. Why?
mm,
Because the water's so thick. The air is just a thin version of water. And so when the sun goes off into the distance, you know, it's just going off into the distance. But the thickness, the lens effect of the atmosphere just makes it look like it's setting. And there's
mm,
wonderful videos that we can show you where the sun sets and you crank up your HD camera and the sun pops up. And it's like, well,
mm,
okay. And you can only do that so much because eventually it just goes off.
mm.
But it's fantastic.
So before we get into sort of proofs and stuff like that, you mentioned about your 5 reasons, your 5 points. Let's just I'm keen to hear what they are first.
Oh, you want just the bullet points?
Yeah, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, the bullet points, and these are the same points I have given out for years. They were initially proposed. They came out of an interview that a German television team asked me for because they had a Georgetown physicist over in the States who wanted to debate. And
Hmm.
they said, okay, what we'll do is so you guys don't talk to each other, because physicists don't like talking to anybody. They will record your things and we'll just pass the stuff back and forth like notes in school. So 5 points, one sentence of each. Long distance photography, that'd be the first one. Gravity versus the vacuum of space. The eclipse shadow is too small. The moon is giving off a cold light. The Van Allen radiation belts don't make any damn sense. Those
Yes.
are the
Okay.
5 bullet points.
Okay, cool. So, let's get into sort of like the proofs and stuff like that. I've been watching, obviously in the anticipation of you coming on, I've revisited the flat Earth stuff, and a lot of the big proofs of the flat Earth that people claim to be putting a lot of thought into are the kind of huge projects people are doing on these big lakes, and
Yep.
they're getting these high powered lasers just a couple of inches off the ground, shooting across this lake for like quite a few, like 16 kilometers on some occasions, and they have a DSLR camera waiting on the other side recording, and they're lining it up, and obviously the laser is hitting the lens of the camera, and that should be going down, what is it, apparently there should be an 8-inch drop for mile of flat level
So
ground.
it's
Is that right?
so the equation, and we didn't come up with this. This is mainstream science. It says it. If
Mm-hmm.
you're under 500 miles, it's 8 inches per mile, or otherwise known as 8 inches per mile squared. After
Mm.
500 miles, it gets really, really fuzzy. But who cares? You're not going to see even
No,
close to
of
500 miles
course
per
not,
hour.
of course not. So
So
the
it's so at 8 inches per mile squared, that means, which is really easy. I know people forget everything they knew about algebra, including me. So at 10 miles, it's 10 times 10, which is 100, times 8, which is 800 inches, which means
Mhm.
there should be 800 inches of curvature. And that just gets more and more exaggerated to where at 50 miles, you're looking at almost 1,700 feet,
Mhm.
which is a lot.
Yeah.
And then it gets even more severe after that.
So obviously, this DSLR camera should definitely not be picking up the laser, and of course the counter argument, which is a mainstream scientific thing, is of course refraction, and of
Of
course
course.
the mirage stuff and stuff like that. How do the flat earthers sort of get around the refraction argument? Is it denounced as a science at all, or is there a sensible pragmatic reason why we shouldn't be taking refraction into account?
No, because refraction can only go so far. As a matter of fact, we came up with the killer argument, which one of your counterparts out in the UK found. There's a wonderful video. I don't think I can send you the link through here, but it's in my tests and experiments playlist called
Hmm.
the Black Swan argument, and it's absolutely brilliant. Which is, and we'll get into why the refraction absolutely cannot work here. Which is, there was two oil rigs. There's lots of oil rigs off the coast of California. Most people don't know that. We drill everywhere, and they're offshore. One is like it's 7 miles, one is at 10 miles, and you can, depending on where you are on the beach, you can line these two practically right on top of each other. So if you're looking off in the distance, 7 miles and 10 miles, and your camera is pretty much right there on the beach, you can see both oil rigs. But that's not the problem. And you say, well, refraction causes it to loom over. You can actually, they're not actually there. It's distorted. That's not where they are. I was like, yeah, that's not our point. The point is that the horizon is behind those two oil rigs, and they can't
Hmm.
be, because remember, the whole thing with refraction is the horizon line will be drawn below it, which is why you say, oh, you're seeing buildings cut off here and there. We'll explain those two oil rigs with the horizon line far behind it. It can't. There is no atmospheric effect that can put that horizon behind the oil rigs. It cannot happen. So when anyone comes back with refraction, I go, do this, and then they just go straight into denial. And I've literally had people come at me and say, no, that's not the horizon back there. The actual horizon is invisible. What are you talking about? It's invisible. It's right there. I go, even if you could, no, it's invisible. That's an illusion. I'm going, so there's this weird mirage that's happening behind the oil rigs, and the actual horizon is in front of them. They're tap dancing beyond tap dancing. So no,
Mm.
refraction can only go so far. In fact, most of the stuff we came up with, we took from meteorologists, their own words, like atmospheric lensing. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Mm.
Atmospheric lensing, where when you're looking through enough, you remember water, over a distance, you will see things magnified, which means it chops the top and the bottom off of it. And
Mm.
they're giving us our own evidence.
Okay, so this kind of stuff happens with photography, and these kind of tests also happen with lasers and stuff like that, not physical, tangible things that you can touch. I'm playing a game at the moment called Space Engineers, and I know you're a bit of a gamer yourself. You're like an ex-pro pinball player or something mad like that.
I'm well, I played video games professionally.
And wow, we'll get into that in a second. Can there be, it might be kind of a bit high budget, can there not be a physical test to test the curvature of the Earth? So something like, you got these massive salt plains, like 100 kilometers squared in size, absolutely massive salt plains, which are supposed to be super flat and whatnot.
Yeah,
Um, is there a way in which that you can build a block, an absolute level block, okay, a few inches off of the ground,
sure.
or whatever, half an inch, and you just keep adding blocks, like Minecraft or something like that, right? And you just
Yeah.
keep adding them all the way along, right? And then eventually the distance should change, right, between the ground and let's call it the pipeline or something, right? Eventually there will be a distance and change to allocate for the curvature of the Earth. Has anything like that sort of been attempted and measured or anything like that?
No, again, because physically, I know people have suggested that with different pipes and railroad lines. Actually, we've had railroad engineers say that they don't have to adjust for anything; they just lay track. Then the argument says, well, it's such a minor adjustment because
Mm.
each section is so short. It's like
Mm.
whatever. We've also had people tangibly no. Again, there's salt flats out there.
Mm.
Here's a great example. Here's a great example. There was a university that came out that said that the entire state of Kansas in the United States, the entire state, was literally flatter than a pancake. Okay, so you're saying that there's a part of the world that is absolutely tabletop flat, but the rest of it's curved. The thing is, we keep finding these tabletop flat areas everywhere, and nobody connects the dots, like the Great Salt Flats out of Utah, or the big one in Bolivia. Wonderful footage. If you ever want to see some great video of that, which is the Salar del Uyuni, which is 100 miles across. This big salt flat, and it gets like half an inch of rain every once in a while, to where it gets this mirror surface, and people go out there with SUVs, and it is stunning that you can see from one end to the other, and you can see the line of where the water meets the mountains, and you shouldn't be able to see that. Is there a physical way of doing it? No, which is why the follow-up question might be, is there anything that science could do that could convince me that the Earth is a globe? I go, yeah, there's two things you could do really, really quickly. In fact, don't focus too much on the physical stuff, trying to prove it down here, because you're never going to be able to find a physical way of doing it that doesn't cost $1 billion. Put a 4K camera on a capsule, point it at the ground, launch it, and don't hit pause, edit, stop, and make sure that whatever it does leaves orbit. It's never happened in the history of space travel.
So at the moment, your opinion is that NASA is a scam. They're just essentially a PR agency just pushing this idea of a globe. What's your sort of definitive opinion on NASA, and why should the population discount what they say?
Hang on, I will do this for you right now.
Okay.
1 second. I will send you, because this will be a wonderful reference point that you can put in there. 1 sec, back up. This is something I use for my speech, is my icebreaker at the end of the speeches I did last year. It is a simple shot from, check your email right now.
Yep.
It's a simple shot from Apollo 12. And this pretty much says it all. And remember, this is a random shot from Apollo 12. There's all sorts of shots out there and movies, but this is a good one because the pictures were gorgeous. The video was horrendous. And this, do you have it up on screen?
Yeah, no, I've got it up on screen.
Okay.
By the way, before we continue, the moon landing footage, is fake as fuck. So you don't have to convince me
Absolutely.
that.
And which is also one of the reasons why we resonated so well, because hell, even over in America, wave the flag, we're the greatest, not anymore. That we've been questioning the moon footage ever since 1972, ever since it came out. So when Flat Earth finally came into scope, it's like, oh, that was fertile ground. So this shot right here, a perfect example. This is just a snapshot, right? It's beautiful. It's a beautiful shot. Well, if you know anything about photography, I'll just mention one thing in photography and two things physics. One is, you're sharing the screen with me? Okay.
Oh, sorry. I thought, I'll share the screen for the podcast.
Oh, okay. That's fine. So the first thing is, anyone knows anything about photography? One light source, the shadows go in one direction, period. That's how it works. Well, that's a problem here because the shadows are going in 4 directions. The only way that can happen is if the light source is really, really, really close. Like, I don't know, maybe 30 yards behind the camera guy. You can see the hot spots right behind him. And so number 2, we'll just do 3. We won't even count the fact that there's no stars in the background in any shot ever, because they'll say, oh, it's exposure setting. It's like, no, it's because you knew full well you couldn't line up the constellations to the time date stamp. It would completely screw up because at the bottom you see time date stamp.
Yeah, of course.
So second one would be all the footprints. You see footprints everywhere, all sorts of tracks. Well, that's a problem because tons and tons of footprints. Yeah, but then you look underneath the nozzle that's underneath the capsule, where that thing landed. It's 10,000 pounds of thrust.
Yeah, it's kicked up.
There's nothing underneath it. There's no blast crater whatsoever. I could take a handful of sand and blow a bigger crater than what's there. There's nothing. Literally, it's like it was just set down there. If you zoom, that's a high def image. The whole place looks like it was made out of cardboard and curtain rods. It was made by a homeless person. I mean, what the hell? That thing went 250,000 miles. Last but not least, that dish is totally for show. Remember, this was 1969, right? That's a battery-powered VHF dish. That's got a range, and you can look this up. It is not secret technology. It's got a range of 50 miles, maybe, on a good day with Morse code. That thing was supposedly putting out 10 frames of color video a second and two-way communications perfectly. No distortion whatsoever. Tell me how that works. Tell how it is
Mm,
over 250,000 miles
mm,
through the Van Allen radiation belts.
mhm,
But to your point, because you said, "Oh yeah, the moon missions, ugh, it looked terrible." In fact, the UK was one of the first groups to make fun of it. James Bond movie, Diamonds Are Forever,
mm,
Sean Connery, where he's running through a soundstage in
mm,
America, and he's running through different movie sets, and he
mhm,
runs through a moon mission,
mm.
and the
But
astronaut.
does the thing is,
Yes.
I'm not a flat Earth believer. Okay.
Mhm.
However, I do believe the footage of the moon landing is fake. What was faked for whatever reasons. Maybe they went there and just fucked it up and just thought, tits, we now need to fake it.
Yeah.
Um, or whether it was faked because they actually didn't go and they just wanted to show the world that they did in order to win this egoic race
The
thing
space
with
race.
Russia. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Why did
Um,
Russia quit? By the way,
Sorry.
why did Russia quit?
Yeah, I know exactly. I don't know. Maybe they hit the dome. Who knows? But the you know, why does the moon landing conspiracy stuff prove the flat Earth theory?
It doesn't. It doesn't prove the flat Earth, but it creates. Again, it's one of those lines that I use. Can I prove to you that the Earth is flat? Can I prove it to you? No. Can I create so much reasonable doubt in the globe that you really
Mm,
have nowhere else to turn but some sort of flat Earth model? Oh yeah. Yeah,
mm,
I can do that. And a lot of people, scientists especially, they'll come back and say, well, reasonable doubt isn't enough. I go, in court it is. Over here in the States, reasonable doubt
mm,
every hour of every day
mm,
works out in somebody's favor. And so in fact, I've had people come back. I'm not kidding you. It is amazing, the denial, where they'll say, okay, the moon missions are a piece of rubbish and they're terrible, but that doesn't mean the ISS is fake.
mm,
And it's like, what are you talking about? If you're going to fake one thing, it's the first rule of crime. If you're going to fake one thing, you fake it all, because the punishment is going to be the same
mm,
if you get caught.
mm.
Why would you make the ISS real? And so people say, well, there's something flying around up there. I go, yeah, there's something flying around up there. There's no people in it. I don't know
Mm.
what the hell's flying up there, but I guarantee you there's no people in it. I can show you production mistakes all day long.
So you think that the entire space program outside of the moon landings, even up till 2020, right now, even the celebrity astronauts Tim Peake and stuff like that, they are all actors on this huge stage show to decept all of us into thinking for some reason that the Earth is the model that they believe it is.
I will tell you what I told Philip and Holly, which about Tim Peake, because they mentioned
Mm-hmm.
that. And I said, look, Tim Peake is no different than any of the other astronauts. They are military officers,
Mm,
usually higher ranking military officers. They are paid to follow orders. I am not saying that
mm,
Tim Peake and Terry Virts and Scott Kelly and all those other guys are bad guys. I'm saying they have to follow orders. Do they even know? Because remember, compartmentalization is a powerful thing. Do they even know why they're doing it?
mm,
No, they probably don't. It's like, look, you are going to read these lines. You're going to do whatever. You aren't at a high enough clearance to even know exactly why it's happening. I think they told the Apollo astronauts. I think they leveled with them, which is why they were such basket cases afterwards. Most people don't know. They all drank themselves into oblivion,
mm,
became recluses, didn't do interviews. They were super,
mm,
quiet. It's like, if you ever watch the international press conference of the three astronauts from Apollo 11,
mm.
where they're asking questions, like those guys should have been permanent smiles forever, and they looked like their dog had been shot.
No, they did. I follow a lot of Bart Sibrel stuff, and a funny thing happened all the way to the moon, and
Oh yeah,
astronauts gone wild and stuff like that. And
yeah.
again, very similar to your setup. It got a lot of following, because I think back in the '60s, it was very easy to deceive the people, especially when it came to technology. Of course, now that stuff got outdated pretty rapidly, pretty quickly, and you don't have to be a genius to know that the moon landing footage was definitely not authentic. However, whether or not that just means they're now lying about everything is, that's in the eye of the beholder, I guess, in that sense. But
Let me throw a theory at you real quick, and
Mhm.
that is because for me, the flat Earth thing really opened up my understanding of the moon, which is,
Mm,
for before flat Earth, it was like, okay, they faked it, they faked the moon, they faked the space program because, well, rah rah, wave the flag, money, jobs, budget, you can funnel all sorts of money into secret programs,
mhm,
blah blah blah. But then I got into flat Earth, and it's like, oh, I see, you had to fake it. See, sooner or later, you realize that if you don't militarize space, the companies that actually build the parts for NASA, like Boeing and Lockheed Martin and General Dynamics and so on and so on and so on, they eventually will team up. They'll go by themselves. The
Mm,
private sector will
mm.
eventually, and we see that now.
Well,
Eventually,
that's the military industrial complex, right? That's the
exactly, the military
well,
industrial,
mm,
they've got to take it over before you get groups. Only later, much later, did you get like Blue
mm,
Horizon, Virgin Galactic, and of course SpaceX. And by the time they came along, you had everything in place to where you could just infiltrate their entire organization with your engineers.
mm,
I'm not saying that Elon Musk, well, yeah, actually I am. I said that in the book. Elon Musk is a total fraud. He has never, he's never accomplished anything that he ever set out to do. In our world now, if you are a billionaire, you
mm,
can just call up whoever you need and make a statement on Twitter, and they will run with it. Everything
mm,
he has ever tried to do, he has never ever done. I mean, remember, he was supposedly supposed to send 2 tourists around the moon, just on a little tour, not landing, tour around the moon in 2018. Never happened. Bullet train from LA to San Francisco. Nope. Rescue those kids with that submarine. Nope. Help Puerto Rico out with his power generators. Nope. I mean, he just keeps making up stuff,
mm.
and yet people just buy it. Again, the Tesla Roadster in space, which I don't know if you were going to bring up sooner or later, that's a perfect example. Which is, it was the finest example of misdirection I've ever seen, which was they kept focusing on those boosters, reusable boosters. With what technology? Reusable boosters, landing back on Cape Canaveral,
Mm,
2, and cut to car. And it's
mm,
like, that was it. The profile was already there. There's your
mm,
car in space. I'm going, yeah, how to get there? Where's the Falcon Heavy? Where's the spin-off? Where's the capsule? Where's the thing that launched it? You had 3 HD cameras.
mm.
What the hell? And it's like, and then it's like, oh, it's going to go around Earth a couple times, and it's going to Mars. Turn off camera. It's like, what?
Mm.
Everything, none of the things they did make sense. Plus, of course, the car should have been shredded by the physical changes, the physical differences. Plus, of course, there was no branding. Remember, it was SpaceX and Tesla. There's no logos on either of those things.
Mm.
Nothing. There was nothing on that car. It was just this generic red car. Even the mannequin was generic. There was no logos.
S-
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So why are they faking this? Is it because they want to keep getting their funding for the space program, which they can spend on whatever other black book projects they're spending it on? What? Why the
Why? I
deception?
mean, why fake NASA, or why fake everything?
Yeah, why if the Earth is flat, if
Yeah.
the Earth is flat,
Why hide it?
yeah, why hide it?
Okay. I'll give you the short version. Well, the reason why they keep doing NASA is for the funding now. But back in all right. Let's say it's not just that we were in a box, in sort of some snow globe. We didn't even know what it looked like until about 1960, because you just didn't have the technology to figure it out. I mean, remember, we didn't
Mm,
even have the internal combustion engine until 1900. And then we didn't have decent planes until the 30s and 40s, didn't have jets until later. So if you don't figure out the dimensions of this place till about 1960, and then you figure it out, do you tell the population? At first glance, I threw this, I'm going to drop a name. I threw this at Piers Morgan just by one shot. It's like,
mhm.
really, because he asked that. I go, really? You'd break that story? You'd break that story? And then he had a minute to think about it. And yeah, he wasn't going anywhere with
I
that.
remember, yeah.
Here's why. It's because the ramifications are too huge. The big reason is that civilization has already been built. The powers that be, it's not what they would have to gain from this, it's what they would have to lose. Everything's pretty much where they want it. And all of a sudden, you're going to say, okay, let's do it 3 prongs. Academically, astrophysics and astronomy, oh, you'd have to rewrite those literally from word 1. And then the remaining sciences, hydrology, geology, archaeology, those have to be rebuilt from the ground up. That's every university in every country. That's just academics. That's a nightmare. Economically, you have to shut down world markets for months to figure out what the hell it means, because you don't know. It's like, okay, what do we do? I mean, world markets would be in turmoil.
Well, I
Uh,
mean, they were in turmoil just because of a virus with a
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
99.9% survival rate hit
yeah,
us, right?
absolutely. Don't get me started on that. The last one, which is probably the biggest, is the spiritual angle. remember the 5 major religions of this world,
Mm,
Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. You're giving them all leverage against science simultaneously.
mm,
And the potential backlash from that, because it wouldn't stop with flat earth. If all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, so science, you were wrong about something really, really important. What else are you wrong about? Let's
mm,
revisit evolution. Let's revisit carbon dating, the Big Bang, dark matter. It would just
mm,
never end. I mean,
mm,
science would be running. They would be on the
mm.
ropes for a long time. That's the shortest Illuminati meeting ever.
So for
Which is like,
your,
sorry, we can't do it.
so for this theory, for the flat Earth theory to work, it kind of depends on the education system being infiltrated, the science industry
No,
being
nope,
infiltrated.
nope, nope. None of it. None of it. It's so, it goes the opposite. I know where you're going with this, and that is there'd be so many people that would have to be in on the secret that it's just logistically nightmarish.
Mm,
It's the opposite. This isn't like the Manhattan Project, where the Americans were building the first atomic weapons,
yeah, I'm
and they
familiar.
were basically just refining uranium in different parts of the country, and nobody knew anything. I mean, it was one of the best kept secrets ever.
Mm,
This thing is so big, and I talked about this in the clues. This thing is so big that you don't have to tell anybody. As a matter of fact, there's no better example of need to know than this. You don't tell somebody unless they absolutely need to know. And if somebody accidentally finds out, you get rid of them.
mm,
I mean, that went so far that again, that's what the Antarctic Treaty was all about in 1959, where they
mm,
locked down Antarctica forever, by the way.
mm,
Where it's the Antarctic Treaty was such a blatant red flag for me, where they said, oh yeah, by the
mm,
way, no corporation from any country can ever go to Antarctica
mm,
and set up shop,
yeah.
ever. We
Wasn't
mean,
that treaty also signed within a few months of NASA being founded?
yes. Yeah. It was ratified. Again, the coincidences. So the Van Allen radiation belts were announced,
Mm,
and the Antarctic Treaty was ratified in the same year. Which was like, it's like, oh, man, that's exactly what I would do. It's like
mm,
you sealed off. You basically said there's something super deadly dome-like radiation thing above us that no one should ever go through. Everyone's going to die.
mm,
And Antarctica is off limits. But the Antarctic thing was really, really quiet, super quiet. Nobody talked about it. And
mm,
the other stuff was high profile, but Antarctica, it was just a hostile place that nobody went to. And the Antarctic thing, here's what gets me. It wasn't that Antarctica, that people aren't allowed to go there. I mean, again, you private citizens, you can go down there and have your picture taken with penguins, blah, blah, blah.
mm,
Corporation, you can't do anything. Let's say British Petroleum wanted to go down there and drill for oil, because there's oil down there, right? Sorry, out there.
mm,
And so not only is British Petroleum not allowed to do that, they're not even allowed to talk about it. That's the part that blows me away. And that
mm,
is, you'd think they'd run a full page ad in the London Times and Daily Mirror and whatever else every month, full page ads about how great it would be for us to do stuff, create jobs and money and stuff. No, they're not even allowed to talk about it. It is one of the few treaties. Well, one, it's the only unbroken treaty in history. And the
mm.
other one is it's the only treaty that you're not even allowed to argue against it. Never comes up in UN meetings, never comes up anywhere. At the highest levels, whoever is there's told, no, national security, don't talk about it.
Mm.
So nobody gets to know. And even if they are told, like, you can't do this, you can't do that, they're never told why. It's just under the blanket of whatever country's national security.
Okay, fine. So, it's still a huge conspiracy, of course,
It
but
is.
not so many people are aware of it than the normal
Not the
person
full
might think.
picture. I mean, like, the astronauts don't need it. People say, does Trump know? Why would you tell Trump?
Mm,
But he's literally just a figurehead for a political party. You don't
mm,
need to tell him. He's
mm,
he's far down the
yeah.
wrong stories about
Mm,
other presidents. Do you have to tell Neil deGrasse Tyson or Brian Cox, for example? No. No, as a matter of fact, it's better if you don't tell them, because you want them to act as naturally as possible when
mm,
they're doing stuff. They're talking about space and this and that, the cosmos. That's their job. Why would you tell them exactly what the cosmos, you don't level with them.
mm.
There's no reason to tell almost anybody ever.
Do you believe that the flat Earth is like a conspiracy gateway drug, where it kind of
Like
can
marijuana?
well, that's an entirely different podcast right there. But do you feel like it's kind of a gateway into people starting to find the concept of no longer believing in the kind of global norms as a rewarding, stimulating, dopamine hitting thing, and then they start looking into everything else.
Yeah.
Is that because that's definitely a problem? Whether or not you're right or wrong, it's definitely a problem from what I can see. Is I've had friends and people that I know who started with flat Earth, and then next thing you know, they're ground dwelling lizards eating babies. And
Yeah,
how do you combat that?
we don't, and unfortunately, that is one of the side effects of flat Earth, which is why I tell people literally in the first chapter of the
Mm,
book that I put out, which is if you're not into flat Earth already, don't look at it. Don't look
mm,
at it. And
mm,
that's not reverse psychology,
mm,
mostly.
mm,
It's that if you look at this, it's a rabbit hole where, and I'm very specific. I say there's a point of no return, very much like the Matrixy thing,
mm,
where once you're in, you're in. You're not climbing back out.
mm,
David Weiss from a podcast, he does a channel deep inside the rabbit hole. I think it's called the Flat Earth Podcast. He actually called me. I think it was this year because everything was going nuts. He goes, he wasn't being delusional when he said, he goes, did we have something to do with this? What's happening? All the people losing their minds and going into these conspiracy rabbit holes.
mm,
He goes, is this partially our fault? And
mm,
I go, I don't know, but it might be because you're right. Flat Earth is a big umbrella over all other conspiracies. And I have been fond of telling people, I go, and if you get into Flat Earth, the big problem there is that you will revisit every conspiracy you dismissed up until that point.
mm,
You will look at 9/11 again. You
mm,
will look at false flag shootings. You will look at Pearl Harbor and every major American war and
mm,
Loch Ness Monster. You will look at all that stuff again because of flat Earth. Yeah, you're
mm,
absolutely right. Because if you can get your head around it, if you can understand flat Earth even a little bit, you have that click moment. Yeah, you have the moments like, wait a minute, maybe they are lying about stuff, but yeah, but at the same time, we all know there are conspiracies, legitimate media sanctioned conspiracies in
mm,
business and politics and
mm,
sports and entertainment, journalism, and even science. There are conspiracies out there. Most of the time it has to do with money. So, but it's what we've done is we've moved the line. So it's usually the line is fairly close to you. These are the things we accept, we're willing to look at. Anything on the other side of the line we aren't willing to look at.
mm,
Flat Earth pushes that line way out there. And
mm,
yeah, you're right. You probably have friends that, you know, I can't. And but at the same time, can I yell at people that say, and I said this, the clues, that the entire royal family is made out of lizards? Can I condemn that guy? Not now,
yeah.
because I open with flat Earth. Well,
Mm.
I have no leg to stand on there. I can't justify him. It's like, oh yeah, Bigfoot and Elvis had a baby. All right, what do you got? I'll give you a couple minutes. Sure.
Something I find extremely interesting is how many conspiracy theorists, many conspiracy theories. I even actually hate using that term because it was coined by intelligence agencies in the USA a long time ago to control popular opinion. But
Right.
it's the term we've got, isn't it? So why are there lots of conspiracy theories that are like militantly censored? People like David Icke who are straight up cancelled. I mean, like straight up,
If
boom, they're done, they're gone. But flat Earth seems to be it's allowed to float around on the surface, man. It's allowed to be
I
there. Why? Why?
yeah, that's also another sensitive topic. Because we had government hearings over here where
Mm,
they went after three topics. I mean,
mm,
you had head of Google, well, not Bezos himself, but
mm,
people that were in charge of YouTube and Google's
mm,
operations. And they were asking that they were three topics: false flags, snake oils, miracle cures for
mm-hmm,
everything, and flat Earth. And they were cracking down. Absolutely. You put up you create a false flag video on YouTube, it's going down. You make a snake oil video, you have a pill that's going to cure something, it's going down.
mm,
But with flat Earth, yeah, they were really gentle. They
mm,
said, yeah, we're going to recommend it less.
mm,
It's like,
yeah.
and I'll give you another line real fast, which is there was a programmer that came out of YouTube, and they asked him, they said, hey, why do things get recommended to me on the right hand side? What's the algorithm for that? And he said, remember, there's thousands and thousands of topics on YouTube. He said one topic, and he goes, well, if the average person that gets into flat Earth watches 20 videos in a row, what do you think we're going to recommend? You know, because people were complaining because it was getting recommended for all sorts of stuff for 3 years straight.
Mm.
I have been not shy of saying that we have had help, meaning whatever's happening, they are letting us do it. That we have gotten nothing but token resistance. Literally, I mean, if you were Google, you could you could stunt us down to nothing in a matter of minutes. I mean, literally, you could say, you know, I mean, it's basic algorithms, right? It's like never recommend flat Earth or any combination of those things to anyone ever on YouTube. And in Google search engines, never, ever, ever fill in anything with flat Earth. I mean, it's simple code. And that was the opposite. We just kept getting recommended and recommended. So yeah, there is this weird thing out there to it doesn't help me because people said, well, you must be an agent and work for the government. It's like, no, but I can tell you right now, the government hasn't been fighting us. So when even the thing they said they were going to recommend us less and the revenue streams were reduced by at least 60%, like within months, they said, oh, they're censoring us. They're censoring us. I go, no, they're not. They may not be hitting the brakes, but they're just taking their foot off the gas.
Well, they're just making it slightly less marketable, basically, aren't they? They're trying to.
Plus the market was so saturated, we didn't need them at that point. Let me throw one more thing at you, which you'll appreciate. Which is in Google, basically all search engines have search results equals a number, right? You know, whatever you type in, tractor maintenance, blah, 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 20 something thousand, and so on and so on. And I'm a huge stats nut. So I was watching this in YouTube. Our numbers went up from in January or in beginning of 2015, we were like 50,000 search results. That includes all references and not number of videos, but all the different tie-ins. And we started making huge jumps. I mean, up to where we were 5 million, 10 million, 15 million, to where the summer of 2018, we were at 20.9 million. And that's monstrous, right? And I was making these videos. They're still on my channel. You can see the tracking to where the only people ahead of us were, you know, small players like Katy Perry and Taylor Swift and Justin Bieber and those guys. And I remember making a video, and because I think we're being watched pretty much all the time, where I said, because we had just went past Donald Trump, right? And I made a video. It said, flat Earth catches the president of the United States. He was at 20.8. We were at 20.9. Just weeks later, somebody calls me up and they said, scoreboard's gone. And I go, what? Has our numbers been stunted again? What the hell? Is the filter screwed up? They go, no, search results isn't there anymore. I go, for flat Earth? They go, for anything. It's gone. It's gone. And you can go on YouTube right now and check yourself. You type in any topic, the line search results equals a number was moved entirely. And people say, well, don't be delusional. It has nothing to do with flat Earth. I go, oh, really?
Well, you know, as with everything, there's a chance. But a point that I wanted to make was, you know, you mentioned that you believe that you've had some sort of help on the side of Google and YouTube. I mean, they're the same thing now. And, you know, I'm a firm believer that things like that don't happen by accident. And there would be an agenda of why you guys have had an easy ride of it or have had some sort of help in maintaining, you know, your legitimacy through the lack of hardcore censorship, right? Whilst other theories and conspiracy things about the governments and cover-ups and, you know, military industrial complex stuff, deep state stuff does get deleted off the face of the earth. Do you think there is a chance, a small chance, that much like how Neil deGrasse Tyson isn't in on, you know, the truth and stuff like that, that you're not in on the truth, but yet the flat earth theory is being used as the poster child to scratch the itch for people who want to, you know, go into conspiracy theories, to distract them with flat earth so they don't go looking into some of the other theories that could potentially be true, that they want to diverge? Because of course there is a chance, right? That there is a feasible chance.
I've been asked that. And in fact, I've had people in the other people in the conspiracy world who have come at us. One of the biggest would be all the people that were into 9/11. And because up until flat earth, the most talked about conspiracy recently has over the last 10, 20 years has been 9/11. And they said there is no better legitimate conspiracy. There is nothing bigger than 9/11. It opens up all these things. And does flat earth take away from it? I don't think so. because of what you said earlier, once you get into flat earth, you are more likely to believe, in like 9/11, for example. Does it consume you in some ways? Yeah, but at the same time, I've gotten too many emails from people that got into flat earth and then got into other things, the gateway drug. People used flat earth to justify, they get into flat earth and then they'll put flat earth to the side and they'll focus on chemtrails, or they'll focus on Pizzagate, or they'll focus on whatever it is. They'll focus on all these things. But come back to your agenda thing though. I've said for several years now that I think that flat earth, it was part of a bigger plan. It was the frame, it was the picture frame for a canvas we haven't seen yet. Meaning flat earth seemed to be one of those things that opened up people's minds for something else that hasn't happened yet. And I don't think it's the virus, and I don't think it's rioting, and I don't think it's anything, all this other stuff. People, the whole woke thing, I'm not counting the racially woke
loony
stuff.
left. Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people that say that they're awake now. I think there's something else coming, and I'm still waiting for it. There's something bigger coming down the pipe. I don't know what it is. I could probably speculate on a few ideas, but yeah, you're right. I think that flat earth is helping them do something. Right. Who knows? Maybe it's conditioning. Maybe it's softening the target, softening people up for something that would have been too jarring otherwise. So because once you get into flat earth, who knows? Spaceships could land and you'd be like, oh yeah, I could totally see that.
I see what you mean. So it kind of like an indoctrination process of kind of softening the impact of something potentially bigger being disclosed.
Right. And for me, there's only a couple things. It's like, what's bigger than flat earth? I go, existence of another civilization, something we've always suspected. Anyway.
Well, are you familiar with the work of Dr. Stephen Greer?
Of course. Yeah.
What's your opinion on him?
Why not? I mean, why not roll out something like that? I mean, seriously, the people it's something that I've said, which is right now we have the infrastructure to roll out a narrative. Beforehand, we didn't. 1960, 70, 80, up until now, we didn't. But now we have high-speed internet, social media, and 6 billion smartphones. You could roll out whatever narrative you wanted to and get to everybody pretty much instantly. I mean, within minutes. And you could get most people on the same page. And I think also they're trying to test that with some of the stuff that they're doing now, like the whole mask thing. I run into all sorts of people that are wearing masks in stores that it's like, yeah, but you don't believe in it. It's like, yeah, but it's easier. It's like, I don't want to be hassled, so I'm just wearing it.
Yeah, of course. It's like this huge kind of exercise on people giving a shit what people think of them, because that's the majority. Like, I mean, I'm like, maybe I'll just wear a mask this time because I just can't be asked for people to sort of give me drama. And I think that's happening on a huge scale. And but again, on the other side, like, mate, it's probably a legit virus. Everyone's shitting themselves, and maybe it's the right thing to do.
It is and it isn't though. I mean, we've never seen. Let's put it this way. I'm a huge numbers guy. We've had viruses come through in the past. And yes, anyone over the age of 80 shouldn't be if they catch anything, it's not good. But you shut down 160 countries? And people like blaming it. It's like, oh, it's all because of the Trump election. I'm going, really? You have to shut down India because of the Trump election? That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. Well, maybe, as you said, maybe there is something bigger coming, and maybe the flat earth movement is something which hasn't been completely censored because it's helping softening the blow of something else. Who knows? My next question to you.
I'm a huge believer in that producers at the top, they control the media. Why would you ever allow me to do like Philip and Holly? Why the hell would you even have me come out there and talk about that? Why I've been allowed to do things with, again, almost no resistance. Even the scientists that, I watched Neil deGrasse Tyson come on a mainstream show, and he did not bring his A game. He did use no graphics, no video. It's like, dude, I'm watching his 7-minute monologue. It went way over the head of the audience. I'm going, wow, you just came out and did that, but you didn't. Yeah.
Do you ever worry? Do you ever worry that you're fucking up? You're fucking up, like you're doing the wrong thing. Does that ever sort of occur to you sometimes that you think, "Fuck, is this right? Is this the right thing to be doing?"
Oh, you mean am I burning down the world?
Well, not
type of thing.
do you ever
Um,
have second thoughts? Do you ever think, actually, damn, maybe the earth's round, man?
no, well, no, and I did in the first year because I predicted, and of course we don't know the numbers. I predicted that there'd be a small percentage of people that wouldn't be able to handle it. Because when you go through this, there's this weird moment where, I mean, it's, you're going through a tunnel, and by the end you're really freaking out because your whole worldview has been changed.
Mm,
And I've seen people get really, really upset now, but then I started noticing the emails, and people would be like, yeah, thanks for ruining my life, right? Stuff like that. But it was tongue in cheek. Nobody was
mm,
really serious. I never got it. Well, I got one death threat. He was actually a guy from the UK, but he was high, and he said I didn't know much about drugs. He was going to stab me with a 24 centimeter knife or
mm.
something like that. I don't know. And I was like, well, okay, well, I got to do the conversion because I have no idea what that is. But he'd been on like a 6 month or 6 day 6 month 6 day meth bender.
Wow.
And so, but that was the only threat I ever got. He
Mm.
didn't apologize later for it.
Outside of sort of the general public being a potential threat to you, during this process, have you ever been sort of fearful, or for your life on a much sort of deeper scale, governments and intelligence communities and stuff like that? Because if what you're saying is true, then of course I imagine that comes with an element of worry and fear.
Normally, yeah, you're absolutely right. And people have asked me that. In fact, there'd be people like, well, why have you been allowed to do things, and why haven't you been threatened? Either
Mhm.
bribed or threatened. And the easy answer is that there's almost nothing you could do leverage wise against me. I mean, I never got married, never had kids.
Mm,
Um, so you couldn't do what you did to Joe Rogan to me. Joe
mm,
Rogan, again, wonderful little story where he was absolutely anti-NASA way before Flat Earth. He was
mm,
absolutely did not believe in the moon missions. And
mhm,
Joe could be a really passionate guy, and he would go after people, and he was winning debates. People,
mm,
he's like, if both sides are equal in a debate, whoever has the
mm,
most conviction generally comes out on top, because it's like, oh, he wants it more. And Joe was winning, and then all of a sudden he disappears for a while. And then a year later, he gets his own brand new show on Sci-Fi Channel called Joe Rogan Questions Everything. And in the first episode, he apologizes, a formal apology to NASA, and recants
mm,
everything he ever said about that. It's like,
mm.
no, it's complete. And then he had astronauts on his show. He's got one of the biggest podcasts in the country right
Yeah,
now.
of course. I follow it very. He was an inspiration really for me to create mine, and he's a big reason of obviously why we're here having this conversation. But I do remember his U-turn on a lot
Yeah.
of these government conspiracy-based topics at a
And
very specific time in his career.
yeah, and Alex Jones said the fairly low key. Alex Jones said that Joe confessed to him. He's like, "Oh yeah, they got to me. They
Mm,
basically threatened me." And
mm,
because again, they can use leverage against you. And now, I mean, I don't want to pick on him too much. Look, he does a wonderful podcast and he gets tons of guests and everything's great. However, he is the only conspiracy guy I've ever even heard of that climbed out of the rabbit holes entirely
mm.
and basically said there are no conspiracies.
I don't think he's out of it entirely. I think he's very strategic. He's very smart, and I believe he still fights on that side of thing through his friends. I
But
mean, look at
but
Eddie
he can't.
Bravo. He
Yeah, you're
gets Eddie
absolutely right.
Bravo on to say the things he really wants to speak about, so
There you go.
he can get it out there. But then at the same time, he needs to protect his own personal brand from
Yeah,
cancel culture and all this good stuff, right?
that's spot on. You're absolutely right. I think that Flat Earth came along and he was just dying to get to do stuff around it.
Mm,
But the only thing he could do was bring Eddie on every once in a while and have guests yell at him. And I lost count of how many times Joe had guests on. It's like, yeah, what do you think about the Flat Earth, man?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
just let him fly with
Now
it.
it's just DMT, right? And carnivore
Right.
diet stuff. But
Yeah.
okay, so look, what's next for Mark Sargent? What's next for you? How do because here's the kicker, right? You haven't done enough for me to believe the Earth is flat.
Mm.
Partly because a lot of the geometry and a lot of the science, it works for both models. That's why the flat earth thing is so alluring to many people. The answers that you guys have to circumnavigation also checks out, as it does for the globe model. So at the moment, it's which story you're going to believe more, the story of people in power or the story of, you know, a small group of people creating a different theory and, you know, aligning scientific proofs to support that. I mean, that's really what theoretical physics is. You know, there are tons of theories in the science community gets past as fact until they're proven otherwise. So, but what's next for the flat earth community? How can you start proactively making changes to the structure of your content and the structure of your experiments to actually start making a difference in changing the minds of the public, if possible?
Uh, that's just it. There's all the experiments that we've done haven't changed much in the last few years,
Mm-hmm.
with the exception of, like, you know, we can do mirrors instead of lasers during the daytime, so we don't have to
Mm-hmm.
use lasers at night anymore. Uh, Other than that, not a lot. I
Mm.
mean, we just keep, what people keep asking, emailing me and saying, "What can I do now? What can I do now?" It's like, look,
Mm.
just keep spreading the word. I'm not here, you know, for the people that are listening right now. I'm not here to convince you. I'm not here to persuade you. I'm just here to put a couple seeds in your head and
Mm.
let them go. It's one of
Mm.
the most unsatisfying things about flat Earth, which is, if you flip, once you turn, for whatever reason, everybody forgets the journey it took you to get there. And they think they can convince their friends in an hour or two. And they get so angry. It's like, what? And like, the holidays are coming up here. It's the most frustrating time for me ever, because people go into, like, the holiday tables, and it's like, you know, Thanksgiving table. It's like, "Oh, what have you been doing?" And, you know, they just come right out and say it. "I'm into flat Earth now." And the whole table goes silent.
Mm.
Um, all I can do is, again, spread the word. And the reason why it has resonated the way it has and has gotten into so many people's heads, I know that, you know, you probably haven't looked into this too much, but 90% of our membership are in the closet. They can't come out. They keep
Mm.
writing me and they said, "Oh yeah, I'm totally into it, but I can't come out about it because they're worried about friends and family, and mostly
Mm.
coworkers."
Mm-hmm.
But the reason it resonates as well as it does is because you say it works as well in the globe as it does in the flat model. True, but the flat model is easier to explain. Meaning, when you give somebody the globe model, you have to have, you know, the globe cannot stand on its own. You know, you have to have a solar system around that, a galaxy around that, a universe around that. You're talking, you know, not just algebra, you're talking like trig and calculus and quantum mechanics, all sorts of fun stuff, right? That's so far beyond the average person, where we come out and say, you barely have to even use algebra with ours. You know, it's
Mm.
just you know, you're just in a snow globe. You're in God's footstool. And
Mm.
that's really, you know, and people, I don't want to pick on the audience, but people, you probably remember the old Art of War saying, which is, people are like water. They always take the path of least resistance. It's a
Mm-hmm.
nice way of saying that people are lazy.
Yeah, of course.
And that it's like, people will always pick the easiest option. It
Mm.
is why texting rules the world instead of
Mm-hmm.
what phone calls. It is
Mm.
what, you know, every fast food rules. Whatever's easiest, people go with. And flat Earth is the easy option.
Wow. I mean, that's a really open and honest thing for you to say. And
It's
and
true.
I think that's why, you know, as a person, I've watched a lot of your shows, you know, I mean, I could easily just I could get some clicks here and I could just fucking trash on you for an hour and a half, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't understand is there are people behind these strongly held beliefs, and
Yeah.
sometimes those these people, you can still be a cool ass bloke and have some fucking wacky ideas, you know, and that's okay. That's okay. And I think if everybody had a little bit more compassion and a little bit more kind of self-awareness, that you can have conversations with people that you don't agree with and it can be a positive, loving experience, the world would be in a far better place socially and culturally than it is right now. So a couple of questions before we end this.
Yeah.
You know, because flat earth, it's a lovely little gateway. Was 9/11 an inside job? Just yes or no?
Building 7. There you go. That's my answer.
So yes.
Yes.
Is the world ran by lizards?
Not run, not run by lizards, but do I
Yeah.
think there's other older civilizations that are still
Yeah.
lingering around,
Yeah.
lurking? Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Well, okay.
I don't think the royal family is, but
Did Admiral Byrd find mass lands beyond the Antarctic?
No, but
No.
I think he found the outer barrier.
Fine. And the last one is Donald Trump saving the world from child trafficking?
No.
No,
No, Donald Trump. Look, can I expand on that one real quick? And
100%.
which is, look, Donald Trump, and again, that's I think a misdirection. Which is, oh, Donald Trump's going to drain the swamp. Donald Trump's going to get rid of all the pedophiles. It's like, you don't understand. Do I think that people at very, very high levels, when you get up to ridiculous, where you don't care what's in your bank account because you don't even need to look,
Mm,
do people does power corrupt, and do people do weird things?
mm,
Yes, they do. Do I think that people abuse children at that level? Sure, why not? Child prostitution is not, it's been around for a long, 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 long time.
mm-hmm,
Those people, however, are so above the president of the United States station
mm,
that they are untouchable.
mm,
You will not be able to get them. I'm not going to name names because I don't know them, but
mm,
I know this. I go, look, Donald Trump is a great figurehead for what, for what he's out there. Oh my God, he's the most controversial, polarizing president in the history of presidents. He's people hate. I'm doing a rant on it next week about how much the left hates him. I've never
mm,
seen a president hated so much by the other side
mm.
ever in the history of presidents. He's not saving anyone. He's
Okay.
not. In fact, what's coming up in 60 something days here will change the face of our country. It does. If Trump wins, cities will burn.
Yeah, either way, it's going to be carnage.
Yeah, if Biden wins, the markets will crash. They will absolutely crash because the markets right now are an utter illusion. They are being propped up by the bonds. The United States is just printing money as fast as they can
Mm,
to keep the stock market even stable. It has never bounced back since the crash 10 years ago.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, the first week of November is going to change everything.
Wow.
There you go.
Exciting times ahead and concerning times ahead as well. For those anarchists out there, of course, there'll be a lot of people rubbing their hands together. Can't wait for something to be shaken up. Mark, how much do you want the Earth to be flat?
I have mixed feelings about it. I'd love for it not to be flat. In fact,
Is
I was
that
hoping.
is that genuine? That you would love nothing more right now to be put in a ship and you can fly up and then you look down, like you see the ass round and you're just gonna be like, well, that's that then. Better go get a job.
If I've told people, I said I would. People say, "Oh, you'd lie." It's like, okay, no, I wouldn't lie if I went up and saw it, because it changed my life. Flat Earth gave me opportunities that I didn't even know were even physically possible.
Because I imagine you make a living doing this now, right?
Yeah, I do. I mean, not great this year, but beforehand I was actually doing some cool stuff. But no, I love, if Flat Earth was everyone wants to be right. If Flat Earth was it actually came out and everyone acknowledged it in the mainstream, the UN came out and said, oh yeah, it's flat. Great, wonderful. I'll do my "I told you so" dance, and that'll be a gift that'll be out there. But if it's not, I really won't lose any sleep. I won't. It'd be like, okay. I mean, but I don't think it. I absolutely do think it's flat. Do I want it to be flat? Yeah, I do. But at the same time, everybody. Let me end with two quick things. Everybody that gets into this hates it. Everybody does. Nobody goes into flat earth thinking it's the greatest thing. Everybody, the T-shirt literally reads, "I became a flat earther because I tried to disprove it." And my closing remark for whoever, you can close with whatever, which is, look, everything I've been saying for the last 90 minutes, just take it with a grain of salt, right? Don't take my word for it. Do your own research. Figure it out for yourself. I'm not going to convince you. Didn't convince you. But, other people that are looking into it, yeah, it'll flip some. I guarantee it.
Amazing. Well, look, Mark, thanks so much for coming on. I would love to have you on again. Even though you're a controversial figure and we might not agree on everything we have to say, conversations can still take place. People can still be adult about it and not let emotion get in the way of good, constructive conversation. And that's a message that I want to get out as part of my podcast. Would you ever come back on my podcast and maybe have a discussion, if I can find an astrophysicist or somebody kind of in a decent position, of which a conversation can be facilitated, but be sensible, where someone could be there saying, can you just behave better and have a proper conversation, or you can break them. Is that something you would be willing to back yourself in an
Course,
environment
I'd
like
be
that?
more than happy to. In fact, it's been proposed by many a host. The
Mm,
problem is that you're going to have a very, very difficult
mhm,
time. I mean, I've seen producers just scramble
mhm,
to find any physicist at all that is willing to even entertain the idea.
mhm,
You got to remember that's from academia.
mm.
Academia is about perception and being
Yeah,
published.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
all they care about. You don't
yeah,
want to be that guy that goes into a room
yeah.
because remember, if it's a boxing analogy, if he doesn't knock me out in the first round,
Hmm.
everyone's staring at him.
Mm,
They're going, "Why is Flat Earth still standing?
mm.
Why is Flat Earth still
Well,
standing?"
I'm up for the challenge. I'll find someone. We'll
Right.
make it happen,
And if you
Mark.
can, great. But remember, it's not that you can't find somebody. Will they be in a frame of mind to even entertain the idea? Because it
Mm,
really upsets physicists.
mm,
If you have a master's degree, in fact, hell, not even a physicist. If you have a master's degree in a physical science, master's or higher, this just infuriates you to
mm.
no end because you're basically, I mean, it's the Neo times 100.
Yeah, of
You know,
course.
it's you're telling him, oh yeah, by the way, all that academia gone,
Okay. Well,
everything you worked for.
we'll see what we can make happen. Mark, thanks so much
Okay,
for coming on. It's been a really good chat.
pleasure.
And yeah, we'll catch up soon. Tell her, man.